Hello guys, today we are going to study electric charge and field, first chapter of NCERT class 12th. So let's begin with the first topic, that is electrostatics 1. In this we are going to study the following topics: electric charge basics, methods of charging, properties of electric charges, Coulomb's law in vector form, relative permittivity or dielectric constant, and finally we will be studying the continuous charge distribution, in which we will see linear charge density, surface charge density and volume charge density. So in this lecture we are going to cover the following topics. So let's start with the first topic, that is basics of charge. Charge is a property associated with matter due to which it produces and experiences electrical and magnetic effects. So what is charge? Charge is a property which is associated with matter. So any matter can have the property of having charge, and that will, due to this property charge, the matter will produce and also experience electrical and magnetic effect. A charge is attracted or repelled by another charge. This is electrical effect. When a charge is moving, it is attracted towards the magnet, that is a magnetic effect. When charge is accelerated, it produces electromagnetic wave. It is electromagnetic effect. So charge is a property associated with matter due to which it produces and experiences electrical and magnetic effect. Now the charge on any matter may be a fundamental property or it may be acquired. That is, maybe that the charge is present from very beginning of the matter. For example, we have proton and electron. They have fundamental property as charge. Means we cannot imagine the existence of electron and proton without charge. So they have this property of having charge. But other bodies actually acquire charge. They may not be charged. They may exist but may not be charged. They acquire charge by having excess or deficiency of electron in a body. This gives the concept of charge on different bodies. Let us see some more important points regarding charge. Charge is a scalar quantity. We know that all physical quantities in physics are divided into two parts. One is scalar, another is vector. So charge is a scalar quantity. Its SI unit is coulomb. Its dimension is AT, where A is represents ampere and T is time. We know that from basics of class 10th, we know that current is defined as charge per unit time, and when we multiply current and time we get charge. So coulomb or the dimension of charge is AT. Physics unit of charge is stat coulomb, or it is also written as ESU. The relation between coulomb and ESU is given as 1 coulomb equals to 3 into 10 to the power 4 ESU. There are some other conversions. Let us see one by one. 1 EMU of charge equals to 3 into 10 to the power 10 ESU of charge. 1 coulomb of charge equals to 3 into 10 to the power 9 stat coulomb. 1 Abe coulomb equals to 10 coulomb. So these are different conversions which were there. We don't have to memorize all of those conversions because we will be dealing mainly in SI units. Now we come to types of charges. There are two types of charges. One is positive charge and other is negative charge. Conventionally we take charge on an electron as negative charge and charge on a proton as positive charge. Now we will be starting with the methods of charging. In this we will be studying three different types of methods of charging. First one is charging by rubbing, second one is charging by friction, third charging by rubbing and charging by friction are same. Third one is charging by second one is charging by conduction, and third one is charging by induction. Let's start with frictional electricity or charging by rubbing. Frictional electricity, the definition is the electricity produced by rubbing two suitable bodies. When two suitable bodies are rubbed against each other, and as a result one of the body transfers electrons from itself to another body, then we say that the two bodies have become charged due to rubbing, or they have acquired frictional electricity. So let us see some examples of that. Here we have a glass rod. When it is rubbed with a silk cloth, the glass acquires positive charge and the silk cloth acquires negative charge, as you can see in the figure. Similarly, we have ebonite rod. When it is rubbed with a flannel, the flannel gets positive charge and ebonite rod gets negative charge. Glass rod and silk, as we have seen how glass rod acquires the kind of charge it gets and silk acquires the other kind of charge. Let's see. That explanation is electrons in the glass are loosely bound. When we rub glass with silk, because glass has loosely bound electrons than electrons in the silk, when we rub them, the glass loses electrons earlier and it loses electrons easily, and hence the electrons get transferred from the glass to the silk, and that is why we see that silk acquires negative charge and the glass rod acquires positive charge. So as a result, glass becomes positively charged and silk becomes negatively charged. Similarly, we have ebonite rod and fur. Electrons in fur are loosely bound in it than the electrons in ebonite rod. So when ebonite rod and fur are rubbed together, the comparatively loosely bound electrons from fur get transferred to ebonite, and since electron gets transferred to ebonite, the ebonite gets negatively charged and the fur becomes positively charged. It's very important to note that the electrification of the body, whether positive or negative, is due to the transfer of electrons from one body to another body. This is a question which is asked many times in the board examination or in your school examination. What is the cause of frictional electricity? What is the cause of charging by rubbing? The charging by rubbing occurs due to the transfer of electrons from one body to another body. If electrons are transferred from a body, then the deficiency of electrons makes the body positively charged. When electrons are less in number, we know that in an atom the number of electrons and protons are equal, and hence it is neutral. But when some electrons are transferred from a body, then there are less number of electrons than the protons. When we have less number of electrons, protons are dominating, and hence the body becomes positively charged. So we understand from here that deficiency of electrons make a body positively charged. If electrons are gained by a body, it means that the body has more number of electrons, and if it has more number of electrons, it means electrons will dominate, means negative charge will dominate, and hence the body will get negatively charged. With transfer of charge, there occurs a transfer of mass also. This is also a very important point to remember. We must note here that when we transfer electron from one body to another body, if electrons are transferred from one body to another body, there is transfer of mass also. So if some electrons are transferred, that is, if a body loses some electron, it loses some mass also. So hence, what do we conclude from here? From here we conclude that if there is some transfer of electrons from one body to another body, not only the first body loses electrons, not only it acquires positive charge, but also it loses some amount of mass. So in charging by friction, in charging by rubbing, what do we get? We get that in charging by rubbing, the one which gets positive charge loses some mass also, and the one which gets negatively charged gains some mass also. Next point is, if two bodies from the following list, we have a list here. How do we know that a body rubbed against another body will acquire negative charge or positive charge? So if two bodies from the following list are rubbed, then the body appearing early in the list gets positively charged, whereas the later gets negatively charged. And the list is here: fur, glass, silk, human body, cotton, wood, sealing wax, amber, resin, sulfur, rubber and ebonite. In this, the one which is occurring earlier will get positively charged and the latter will get negatively charged. For example, we take example of fur and ebonite. We can see clearly fur is the first, ebonite is the last. So ebonite must get negatively charged when rubbed with fur. Here we have glass and silk. Silk is glass is coming earlier, silk is coming later. So silk will get negatively charged when rubbed with glass, and so on. You can make so many lists out of this table. Next we come to the column. We have two different columns for your ready reference. In column 1 there is one pair of two bodies which we are going to rub, and in second column we have second body. Glass and silk, glass gets positively charged, silk gets negatively charged. Wood and fennel gets positive charge, and amber, ebonite, rubber and plastic gets negative charge. Ebonite and polythene, ebonite gets positive charge and polythene gets negative charge. Dry hair and comb, this is very famous experiment which we do in our earlier childhood. We used to rub comb and dry hair, and we used to see that the comb attracts the small bits of paper. So here we can see the dry hair gets positively charged, our hair gets positively charged and comb gets negatively charged. Next is the second method of charging, that is charging by conduction. When a charged body is brought in contact with uncharged body, some of the charge on the charged body gets transferred from charged body to uncharged body. This is called charging by conduction. So what do we mean by charging by conduction? We bring a charged body in the contact with uncharged body, and some of the charge on the charged body gets transferred from the charged body to uncharged body, and this method of charging is called charging by conduction. So in this case we need one charged body and another uncharged body. When charged body is brought in contact with uncharged body, the charge from charged body gets transferred to uncharged body. This method of charging is called charging by conduction. In this, both the bodies acquire same kind of charge. Also, one point which we have to remember here is charging by conduction may also occur between two charged bodies. We may bring two charged bodies together in contact, and still finally they may have some charges which will be of same kind. So final nature of charge depends on sum of the charges on both the bodies. If both the bodies are charged, then what will be the final nature of charge on both the bodies? That will be decided by the sum of the charges on both the bodies which are being brought in contact. Suppose if we have two identical bodies, then the final charge on both the bodies are Q1 plus Q2 by 2. So if two bodies are identical and one body has initially Q1 charge, second body has initial Q2 charge, then finally the two bodies will acquire equal amount of charge and will be given by Q1 plus Q2 by 2. Even if we have two non-identical bodies, even in that case we can use conservation of charge to find out the final charge on a given sphere or on a given body. Next we come to charging by induction. What do we mean by charging by induction? This is a phenomenon of temporary electrification or temporary charging of a conductor, in which opposite charge appears on the closer end and similar charge appears on the farther end. We can see in the figure that we have a rod which is negatively charged. When it is brought near to a sphere, the nearer end of the sphere gets opposite charge and the other end of the sphere gets the same kind of charge. This is called temporary electrification. Why? Because As soon as the rod is removed, the charged rod is removed, the charges on the sphere will get redistributed again and the sphere will no longer remain charged. Even if you notice here, even in this case, the sphere is not charged. A sphere has just separation of charge. It is only the separation of charge which is there. Now we come to a temporary charge can be made permanent by the following method. This is a question which is asked in NCERT. NCERT asks a question, how can you charge a metallic sphere negatively or positively without touching it? So this is the method, the 4 steps by which we can charge a metallic sphere without touching it permanently. In first step, we bring a positively charged rod near the sphere. The negative charges are getting attracted towards the rod and the positive charge gets away from it. Now we earth or ground the sphere. What happens? The negative charges from the ground gets attracted towards the sphere and negative charge neutralizes the positive charge. And as a result, we can see in the C part of the figure that the sphere has less number of positive charge and more number of negative charge. Now if we remove the rod, still the sphere will have more negative charges and hence this type of charge has become permanent. Now we move to some important points about charging by induction. Amount of induced charge is given by Q dash, which is equal to minus Q into 1 minus 1 by K, where K is the dielectric constant of the medium in which charge is being induced. The charge being induced may be a metal or maybe some other medium. The K is the dielectric constant. If you don't understand what is dielectric constant at present moment, then there is no need to worry. We will study about dielectric constant later in this lecture. For vacuum, K is equals to 1. If we put K equals to 1, 1 minus 1 becomes 0 and hence we see that Q dash becomes 0. That is, no charge can be induced in vacuum. So we don't have a charge induced in vacuum. For metals, K equals to infinity. So Q dash becomes equals to minus Q. So if charge is to be induced in a metal, it gets equal and opposite charge induced in a metal. Next, we come to properties of charges. The first properties of charges, there exist only 2 types of charges, namely positive and negative, which we have already studied. Next important property of charges, like charges repel and unlike charges attract each other. Third property of charges, that charge is a scalar quantity. Next property of charges, charge is additive in nature. Next property of charges, okay, now let's see what do we mean by charge is additive in nature. If we have 2 coulomb of charge, 5 coulomb of charge and minus 3 coulomb of charge, we can simply add them together to get 4 coulomb of charge. Here we have to keep in mind the sign of the charge. We cannot ignore the sign and add them. If when we are adding the charges, we must keep their sign in mind. Next, last point is charge is conserved. Charge is conserved. The conservation of charge is the next property of charge. Algebraic sum of positive and negative charge in an isolated system remains constant. So if we have an isolated system, here what do we mean by isolated system? What do we mean by isolated system here is that there is no charge which is coming from outside and there is no charge which is going away from the system. Such a kind of system is called isolated system in this case. Let's take an example. When a glass rod is rubbed with silk, negative charge appears on the silk. Initially both silk and glass rod were neutral, so the total charge is 0. Now negative charge appears on the silk and equal amount of positive charge appears on the glass rod. Initially total charge was 0 and the net charge on the glass silk system remains 0 before and after rubbing. This is one example of conservation of charge. Next point is, it does not change with velocity, and why this is an important point, because similar to charge we have another property of matter, and that is called mass. And mass we know is relativistic in nature. So if we move a body having mass with some high velocity, we know that relativistically its mass changes. and hence from there we know that mass is relativistic in nature. But when we move a charge with the same velocity, we don't see any change in the amount of charge on the body, and hence we conclude that charge does not change with velocity. That is, we can say that charge is non-relativistic in nature. Last point is charge is quantized. This is one of the most important properties of charges. Charge exists in nature as discrete packet rather than in continuous amount. This is what do we mean by charge is quantized. Charge has a quantum. We know that charge appears on a body only because of transfer of electrons. So whenever there is a transfer of electron, there will be a transfer of 1, 2, 3 or 4 number of electrons. Means integral number of electrons will be transferred. Never we can have 5.2 number of electrons transferred from one body to another body. So whenever electron is transferred, it is transferred as in integer form, and hence charge will always get transferred as integral multiple of fundamental electronic charge, and mathematically we can say that Q equals to plus minus Ne, where minus represents, because we have two types of charges, it may be positive charge or negative charge, and hence we have a positive and negative sign here written. Here n will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. Only integral values n can take. Now one more important point. Recently the existence of quark of charges having 1 by 3e and 2 by 3e have been postulated. 2 by 3 charge is positive, 1 by 3 charge is negative. 2 by 3 charge having 2 by 3 charge is called up quark, and the quark having minus 1 by 3e charge is called down quark. If the quarks are detected, this is the theory which has been postulated. If we detect the charge, even in that sense, if we have a concrete practical evidence for the existence of quark, even in that case, quantum of charge, even if quantum of charge changes to 1 by 3 or 2 by 3, but still quantization of charge will hold good. Why? Because in real life we don't have charging of a body by transfer of quarks, we have charging of body by transfer of electrons. One more thing which is asked in NCERT questions, that is, what do you think should be the composition of proton if it is made up of up quark and down quark? What is the composition of neutron if it is made up of quark and down quark? So if we look at it as from the point of view of conservation of charges, we see that proton should have 2 up quark and 1 down quark, and neutron should have 1 up quark and 2 down quark. Now we come to Coulomb's law. Earlier we were studying about the charges and their properties. Now we come to what is the force between 2 point electric charges. The statement of Coulomb's law is as follows. The electrostatic force of interaction, attraction or repulsion. We know that 2 point charges are kept according to their nature. They may attract or repel. So that force of interaction we call combinedly to attraction and repulsion both. The force of interaction between 2 point charges is directly proportional to the product of the charges. It is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them, and this force acts along the line joining 2 charges. This is the statement of Coulomb's law which you have to write in examination. Strictly speaking, Coulomb's law applies only to stationary point charges. These forces between 2 point charges are applicable only when we have 2 charges which are stationary. If they come in motion, then magnetic properties also come in contact, come into play, and then they may affect the result also. Mathematically we can write F is directly proportional to product of the charges, F is inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. We can combine them and we can write F is proportional to product, directly proportional to product of charge, and inversely proportional to square of the distance. And F can be written as equals to K times of Q1 Q2 by R square, where K is a positive constant of proportionality called electrostatic force of constant or Coulomb's constant. The two charges have been shown like this. Now we come to the details of the value of K. In vacuum we write K as K equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, where epsilon naught is called permittivity of free space. If you don't understand what is permittivity of free space, don't worry now. We will be studying about the permittivity of free space very soon. In medium we write K as equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon, where epsilon is absolute electric permittivity of the dielectric medium in which the two charges are kept. So we understood the value of K depends on the medium in which the two charges have been kept. If they are kept in vacuum, K is equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. If they are kept in some other medium, K equals to 1 by 4 pi epsilon. What do we understand by the dielectric constant permittivity? Let's understand. The dielectric constant of a medium or relative permittivity or specific inductive capacity or dielectric coefficient, these are four different names of the same quantity that we will be generally calling as dielectric constant or relative permittivity. It is given by K equals to epsilon R. Epsilon is a Greek letter. Epsilon denotes absolute permittivity of medium. Epsilon R denotes relative permittivity, which is defined as absolute permittivity of the medium to the ratio of absolute permittivity of medium to absolute permittivity of free space. Here absolute permittivity of any medium or free space denotes the electrical property of the medium, how much a medium allows the two charges to interact is measured in terms of electrical permittivity of the medium. So in vacuum we can say that F can be written as, instead of K we are writing 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R square. Instead of K we have written 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. In a medium we can write 1 by 4 pi epsilon. Instead of epsilon we can write epsilon naught into epsilon R. That can be seen from the equation which has been kept in the blue box. From there we can write the value of epsilon as epsilon naught into epsilon R Q1 Q2 by R square, where the value of epsilon naught, the permittivity of free space, is equals to 8.8542 into 10 to the power minus 12 Coulomb square per Newton per meter square. And if we find out the value of 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, it comes out to be 8.9875 into 10 to the power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square, but we write them as 9 into 10 to the power 9 for all numerical values. The numerical value of 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught is taken as 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. Now we go into Coulomb's law in vector form. If we take two charges which are positive, that is the product of the charges is greater than 0 and separation is taken as R, and we take R12 unit vector which is directed from Q1 charge to Q2 charge as shown in the figure, and since we have taken the two charges as positive, they will repel each other and we will have two forces F21 and F12 as shown in the figure. F21, the force F21 is force on charge 2 due to 1 and F12 is force on charge 1 due to 2. Similarly, we can also have two negative charges, and in this case also the product of the charges will be greater than 0. The separation is R, and again the R12 unit vector is directed from charge 1 to 2, charge Q1 to charge Q2. From here we can also conclude that if we have R21 unit vector, that will be directed from charge Q2 to charge Q1. Again we can see, since the two charges are negative, the force will be repulsive and the direction of the force will be as shown in the figure. Now for vacuum, in vacuum for charges greater than 0, the product of the charges greater than 0 means like charges, we will have F12 we can see is in the direction of R21 unit vector. So we will write as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R square into R21 cap. Here the unit vector is used as R21 because F12, as we can see in the figure, is directed towards R21 unit vector. Similarly, F21 can be written as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R square R12 unit vector, because F21 is in the direction of R12 unit vector. Now, if we take the charges, the product of charges as negative, means one charge is taken as positive and another charge is taken as negative, then the force will be attractive and the direction of force will be as shown in the figure. In this case, we can write F12 as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R square R12 unit vector, because F12 is in the direction of R12 unit vector and F21 is in the direction opposite to R12 unit vector, and hence we will write F21 as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R square R21. But in both the cases we can see that F12 and F21 are equal and opposite in direction, equal in magnitude and opposite in direction in both the cases. So Coulomb's law in vector form establishes Newton's third law of motion also. Not only that, Coulomb's law in vector form also shows that the force of attraction or repulsion between 2 point charges act along the line joining them. F12 we can write, if we write in proper vector form instead of writing in unit vector form, we will have yet another R in the denominator, and hence we will have 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R cube into R12 vector or R21 vector according to the direction of F12 and F21. Note one point here, that is we have seen in the equations above that we have appearance of R cube in the force, but here we must note that Coulomb's law obeys inverse square law only, it does not obey inverse cube law. The cube appears only because we write it in proper vector form instead of writing in unit vector form. Now we move towards definition of units of charge in terms of Coulomb's law. 1 coulomb of charge is that charge which, when placed at rest in vacuum at a distance of 1 meter from an equal and similar stationary charge, repels it and is repelled by it with a force of 9 into 10 to the power 9. If in the mathematical statement of Coulomb's law we put charges as 1 coulomb and distance also 1 meter, then we see that force is equals to K in vacuum, and which is equals to 9 into 10 to the power 9. So what do we understand from here is that 1 coulomb of charge is that charge which, when placed at rest in vacuum at a distance of 1 meter from an equal and similar stationary charge, it repels it and is repelled by it with a force of 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton. Now we want to study about relative permittivity or dielectric constant in a bit detail. The dielectric constant or relative permittivity or specific inductive capacity or dielectric coefficient, the four names of the same thing, is given by the ratio of absolute permittivity of the medium to the permittivity of the free space, as we have studied. But here we want to extend the definition and now want to write the definition of dielectric constant in terms of force. If we see, the dielectric constant or relative permittivity can also be defined as the ratio of electrostatic force between two charges separated by certain distance in vacuum to electrostatic force between the same two charges separated by same distance in that medium. So K can also be written as F in vacuum to F in medium. We have seen the two expressions. If you divide the two expressions, we will get dielectric constant K. One more point to remember here is dielectric constant, being the ratio of similar quantities, has no unit. Next we come to the last topic of today's lecture, and that is continuous charge distribution. Continuous charge distribution, till now we have been studying the point charges. Any charge which covers a space with dimensions much less than its distance away from an observation point can be considered as a point charge. What do we mean by point charge? If we are taking an observation point and that observation point is far away from a given charge, then if we compare the distance of the observation point with the size of the charge, and the size of charge comes out to be very small in comparison with the distance of the observation point, then we can consider the charge as point charge. But a system of closely spaced charges is said to form a continuous charge distribution. If we have some amount of charge which has some significant dimension in comparison with the distance which we are using, then we say that it is continuous distribution. The continuous distribution may be of three types. It is useful to consider the density of charge distribution as we do it for density of solid, liquid and gases. In mechanics we have studied the density of solid, liquid and gas. Not only that, we have also studied the linear density, linear mass density, surface mass density and volume mass density also. Similarly, we will have here the linear charge density. The linear charge density, as we can see, is when charge is distributed over a straight line or over a circumference of circle or over the edge of a cuboid, etc., then the distribution is called linear charge distribution. As we can see here that the charge is distributed in a line, then it is defined as charge per unit length. Suppose the charge on this line is Q and the length of the line is L, then lambda, which is the symbol of linear charge density or line charge density, lambda is defined as the ratio of charge and the length. Sometimes we may have the variable lambda. In that case, we will have to take a very small part of the length, and on this we will have a small charge dq and the length dl. Then the lambda will be the ratio of charge and the length. Sometimes we may have lambda given and we may have to find charge. The total charge on this line can be found by actually integrating the lambda with respect to dl over the entire length, and we can find the total charge on the line. Similarly, we have surface charge density. If the charge is distributed over a surface area, then the distribution is called surface charge distribution, and its unit is coulomb meter square because it is defined as charge per unit area. Now, if we take area, charge, we can see it is distributed in area, and we have taken a small area ds on which we have a charge, small charge dq. Sigma is defined as, this sigma is the symbol of surface charge density, which is defined as charge per unit area. We have taken area as S. For a very small element, we can take sigma as dq by ds. Total charge on the surface S can also be written as we had written for linear charge. Total charge can be found by integrating sigma with respect to ds over entire area, and we can find the total charge. This was surface charge density. We come to final last topic, and that is volume charge density rho. If the charge is distributed over a volume, then the distribution is called volume charge density or volume charge distribution, and the volume charge density is defined as charge per unit volume. Its SI unit is coulomb per meter square. If we have a volume, and in this we take a very small volume d tau, and on this small volume we have a charge dq, then rho, that is volume charge density, is defined as q by tau, where tau is the total volume, or we can also write in elemental form as rho equals to dq by d tau. Total charge on the volume tau can be written as integration of rho d tau over the entire tau, as we had done in the case of linear charge and volume charge density. This is the end of the lecture. We will see more topics in the next lecture. Thank you.